to do all kinds of things. Your state, no matter what state you're in, your state is probably already a member of maybe 20 different compacts. They do have to be approved by Congress if they affect federal law, but they are not unusual, although most people have not been impacted by them. The sorry, I think I skipped one. There you go. And as I said, Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution indicates that Congress has to give consent, and as states join compacts by passing legislation in the state like any other legislation. So it would go through both chambers of your legislature, unless, of course, you're in Nebraska, that is unicameral and has to be signed by the governor. So once that happens, a state joins, and then once more than one state joins, we can go to Congress and ask for them to approve the compact. So they really are maybe the most important, maybe the most powerful tool we have to preserve federalism and to assert state authority in areas where the federal government has overstepped its limits. And it's that power that is why we are attracted to our interstate power compact. And that interstate compact is meant for states to join. Again, they would join it by passing that legislation in their state. And where we're at, the stage we're at, is we're asking for legislators to sponsor the bill and introduce it in their next legislative session. And of course, every state has a different legislative session. And it allows states a very powerful tool to push back on the federal government in terms of the Clean Power Plan. And so that's what we're hoping to accomplish. And there are lots of ways people can get involved. You can get involved by going to our Fueling Freedom Project website and tell your friends about it. You see it there on the slide, through Facebook and Twitter. Write letters to your state legislators and talk about it at your different groups that you might be members of, whether that's a Tea Party group or a Liberty group or a church or wherever, homeschool type group, and share the activist toolkit that we've created. A few more metrics I do want to talk about that before we kind of go to questions is I want to give a little bit more about the Clean Power Plan and what we know about it. And many of you, especially if you're a legislator, you might know it already. But the plan, the rule coming from EPA, forces nationwide a reduction in CO2 of 32% by 2030, and requires every state to come up with a state plan that they have to submit in basically a year. Actually, it's more like 11 months. The rule was finalized the first week of August, and it has yet to be published in the Federal Register. Once it is in the Federal Register, that's when the clock really starts ticking on what states will have to do to comply. And it also will trigger lawsuits. So there have been a number of lawsuits already, but what you might call the big lawsuit will occur once the rule is in the Federal Register. And we already know 17 states have indicated they are going to join that lawsuit. Texas will likely lead that with West Virginia, but there'll be at least 17 and maybe more. Some people are saying it'll be over 20 states that will join. And that, of course, is a great thing, and we think it is unconstitutional. Even the president's lawyer, Lawrence Tribe from Harvard, says it's unconstitutional. So states will, attorney generals will engage on this, and we like that. The problem with the legal side, however, is that will likely take several years to to yield fruit, because it'll take that long to get to the Supreme Court, and much of the damage from the Clean Power Plan will already have happened. The second line of attack is in the Congress, and in the House and the Senate, both have been remarkably good on fighting the Clean Power Plan. The House of Representatives has already passed something called the Ratepayer Protection Act, which gives special tools to governors to be exempted from the rule if rates go above a certain amount. And they've done a great job there. They've added some language in appropriations bills. We already know they're going to do what's called a Congressional Review Act action, which is where Congress basically says that a rule should not happen. In the Senate, they're working on something called the ARENA Act, and I forget what that stands for, but it's another. It's like the Ratepayer Protection Act, but it's the Senate version. It's gotten through committee, and its next step would be to go to the floor. I don't know if that's going to happen or not here this year, but we're hoping it will. They also are going to do the Congressional Review Act, which is very good. And Mitch McConnell, which might be a surprise to a lot of people, has of course he comes from Kentucky, so it shouldn't be, has been very good in fighting the EPA. Both houses, the House and Senate, have held very good hearings opposing the Clean Power Plan, and that's been very good. But like the problems with the court taking so long, the Congress, most of the things I've just said, in fact, maybe all of them, have to be signed by the president. And this is his big signature environmental plan. He is not going to sign any of these bills. So while we're very happy that they're leading on this issue and demonstrating that the Congress is opposed, it probably will not be as helpful as the types of things that we need to do in the states. States need to say no. So we are working with governors to try to just say no to filing a clean power plan state plan. That would be the next step for every state. Six state governors have indicated so far that they will not comply with this rule. And so we are trying to get other states to take that position. Some might file a plan, but maybe only a limited plan. And that's better than the whole plan, although there's some consequences. But we think the action is at the states. Anything we can do to move this along. And the bottom line, and maybe last thing I'll say, I think, is that we say that the Clean Power Plan is all pain and no gain. The pain will be at least double-digit increases in percentage increases in everyone's utility bill. So every state is affected, at least at that level. There's a handful of states actually that are not in this plan, but most of us are going to be in that plan. 47 states are in the plan. And so utility rates are going to go up, and for everybody, and for business as well, and that's a big concern. And the president is doing this, EPA is doing this primarily to show leadership to the world that we're committed to reducing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But the estimate of what this will accomplish 15 years from now is a reduction in the temperature of the Earth by 0.018. So this is an immeasurable number, and EPA pretty much admits that's the case. That there's very little. I mean, if you're like me, you live somewhere where the temperature from night to day changes 20, 30 degrees, and yet this thing will not be a single degree difference, not even a tenth of a degree. It'll be 18 thousandths of a degree difference 15 years from now. So it's really all gain for no gain. And that's our big concern. The overall cost will be about $325 billion as companies have to close down coal plants, fire people, shift over. The plan suggests states greatly increase their renewable energy, primarily wind and solar. And so you're going from a reliable, low cost form of fuel, energy, to a very high cost form of fuel that is weather dependent. It's dependent on wind, it's dependent on daylight. And so the uh, the cost is going to go up for everyone everywhere, and that's why we need to all engage our legislators on this issue, mostly because it's not only going to hurt all of us, it's going to hurt the most vulnerable in our society the most. So that's a thumbnail sketch of kind of what we're looking at, and what I'd like to do now is segue to some questions if anybody has them.
Doug, this is Mark. So one of our students asked, have you read the book called the Global Warming Policy Foundation out of the UK? Not mentions a few names: Benny and Pizer and Nigel Lawson.
Yes, I'm very familiar with Nigel. In fact, we attempted to invite it. Getting ready to have a big conference for anybody in Texas that might be on the call. We're having a energy and climate summit at the end of November in Austin, Texas. And in fact, we reached out to Nigel to see if we could get him to come, but he had a conflict and could not join us. They are really a great group. And I'll tell you, we've got great folks in the States, but some of the European scientists and leaders, elected leaders there, have really done a great job. So yeah, those are both really great contacts.
Um, and Doug, I've got two students that are typing, but it's not coming through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable Kale Kiabu's um, microphone. Kale, if you would enable your microphone and go ahead and ask your question. Oh, here we go. Kale's question is, can you name the states and the governors that are involved?
It's a great question, Kale or Cal. I don't know which it is. Of course, it does affect, I say, every state. Technically, not Alaska, not Hawaii, and not Vermont. But every other state has been given a plan to reduce CO2. Um, Even the left coast, as we like to say, Washington, Oregon, California, are have a plan, but they implemented many of these renewable dependent energy policies years ago, and that's why they've got much higher utility costs than the rest of the country. And what some people have said is they're trying to impose California's plan on the rest of the country, and that's a concern. But the six we have, as I said, 6 states have already said that they will not comply, and those states that we consider leaders are Wisconsin, Indiana, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Now, these are uh, statements of the governors that they will not file a plan. Now, in some cases, we've got to kind of hold them to that promise, but they have said that. So we'll see how it works out. But those are the states that are in the lead at the moment.
And follow up to that, Doug, is Kale would like to know how many of the states are backing the Interstate Power Compact.
Well, we are just at the beginning stage. Again, the rule became final at the beginning of August. So we made adjustments to our compact. We had written it already, but we were concerned about circulating it too soon until we knew exactly what the final rule would look like. I haven't talked about this, but the proposed rule was out for a year and a half, and and when they put out the final rule in August, it was substantially different. It was actually a whole different proposal, and some people have suggested suing just on that basis alone, because in some cases, the emission reduction requirements in the proposed rule were radically changed in the final rule. And I'll give you an example. In the proposed rule, Iowa was supposed to reduce their CO2 by 16%. In the final rule, it went up to 42%. In Wyoming, under the proposed rule, it was 19%. And in the final rule, it was 44%. So several of these states have said, hey, we thought we were going to skirt by and not have to worry about this. And in the final rule, it's become much worse. So we are now just starting to circulate the compact. It will not become effective until legislatures pass it. So most legislatures go into session in January. So the actual where we're at in this stage we're at this point is convincing legislators to introduce the bill, introduce the compact as a bill in their upcoming session. So we will probably not know how many states will back the compact until uh, March or April of next year.
We have Representative Heather Scott from Idaho on the line with us. Her question is, how will it affect hydropower? The feds don't always consider it renewable.
That's an excellent question, and you're exactly right. They also don't consider nuclear, but we all know that hydropower is a clean source of energy, and many of us in the East are envious of the power production that is across the West. But one of the problems in the rule is they basically don't count many states. States have been doing. Texas has got tons of wind energy. Lots of states have been doing some solar and wind and whatnot. Um, but EPA does not allow you to count much of what you've already done, and that includes hydro and any pre-existing um, wind and solar. Hey, Mark, I'm getting lots of feedback from you. Lots of noise in the background there, so I apologize to everybody. But the so definitely it's a problem. Of course, again, most people from a green standpoint don't really like dams. They prefer all dams go away. Hello, I'm not hearing anything now.
Sorry about that, Doug. I had to unmute myself. I apologize. Um, Carol Person from Washington State has noted that the EPA has already eliminated over 400 dams in California and Oregon, and I know that they're in the process of doing the same thing in Washington State. Is this one of those avenues for those states related to the lawsuit, or is that not applicable here?
I don't know if it is applicable, but that's a very interesting point because basically they're taking away a clean source of energy. I don't know how that might apply in a lawsuit. Quite often, the dams are eliminated by the Interior Department more so than EPA, but they both do it.
Um, Representative Scott is asking, where can we get the bullet points of this issue with the facts so we can easily share it with others as well as other legislators?
Well, we do have an activist toolkit, and I believe we are going to send that to everybody after the call. It'll have a copy of the compact and the regular sorts of things you would expect, a question and answer, a little bit of background on what compacts are. and that thing. And also for any legislator on the call, contact me directly, or I see on the screen here, Kelly's email is on there, but you can contact her or me, and I'd be glad to engage you directly on ways that we can work together.
Yes. So let me see here. I think unless there's any other question, folks, go ahead and send those in. But Kelly, if you would like to, let me unmute you. Give me just a second. Go ahead, Kelly, with about the email alerts.
Right. So what we'd like to do is if you want to be on our email alert list, so that would, we're going to have a second activist toolkit coming out in the next week or so, that'll have some extra materials and resources. So if you want to receive those sorts of things, then we'll need to get your email address. I'm not sure exactly how we should do that. I mean, maybe people could leave a comment or something saying they'd like to be on it. Um, but other than that, we will definitely send you, since you are on the webinar tonight, we'll definitely send you the first activist toolkit, like Doug said, that has a copy of the some other helpful news articles that talk a little bit more about the Clean Power Plan and about the compact itself. So we'll send that out, make sure that gets sent out to everybody who's on tonight. And then if you want to sign up to get further updates as we go along, then we'll figure that out and get you signed up for that. And as always, you can email me directly at that email address that's on the screen now if you have questions or if you want to let me know you want to get updates.
And then I would
Yeah,
just
we can
add,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I would also add that we have a website that has all the material, and you can see it here. It's fuelingfreedomproject.com, and that also has helpful articles and additional background material on all the parts of the Fueling Freedom Project.
Perfect. So let me. The system is relatively new to me, Kelly and Doug. And so what we could do is, for those of you who are on call, you would like to get the alert emails. You can put your email in the chat here, or you can email uh, CSG directly, and we'll just forward you guys the emails if that works, Kelly, and whatever emails we get now. And that way, whoever's interested have
Sure.
the best. The other is Mary Mark. If you have a question, just unmute yourself. Mary Mark, are you there?
Okay. Yes, I am. Thank you. Yeah,
Yep, I just lost you.
I was hoping to have him talk about explain the forgotten moral case for fossil fuels, how civilization has been transformed. That I wanted to hear him talk about that a little bit.
Can
I
you,
thought
Mary Mark? Can
I
you
was hoping to hear. Yes,
Mary
it's
Mark?
in
Can you
the
go ahead?
email. Yes, it's in the email that you sent out. And it said, explain the forgotten case for fossil fuels, how civilization has been transformed and the human condition improved through the development of this energy source. So I was hoping we were going to talk about that a little bit.
Well, thank you so much for the question, and it is a part of our project. My colleague at Texas Public Policy Foundation actually wrote a paper on called fossil fuels, the moral case, that was presented at the Heritage Foundation about a year ago, and she is currently working on a new book. Um, uh, it's a slightly different topic, but similar idea, sort of bringing together. She's doing it with Stephen Moore from Heritage. They're co-writing it, and it should be out here at the end of the year. But they've gone back through history and just talked about everything from the discovery of fossil fuels and how it transformed living conditions across the world and still does. When you look at a country like ours, where the water and the air and environment are very clean, how when you compare that to parts of Africa where people don't have electricity and are still cooking with uh, cow dung and wood and die of lung disease from inhaling smoke, kind of contrasting those two uh, uh, situations. Um, they march through the technology changes and especially all the way up through what fracking has done to unlock oil and gas from places we couldn't go before, and how building a market system where these supplies become plentiful and the price drops is just another way that we've been able to do the kind of advancement that uh, has resulted in uh, healthier living and a better standard of living, longer life. We're living, there's a there's a great video that is produced online. It was produced for Earth Day this past year by Alex Epstein, who actually is also someone who writes about this. He's got a book actually called The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. That's a little problematic, but anyway, he's got his own book. He's from California. He runs uh, I just lost the name of his organization, but he's got a great video online where he describes if you were to take, he basically is saying if you took a pilgrim and you transformed him, 300 years to today, sort of what would he be observing? This pilgrim would observe, wow, you are your water is so clean, your air is so clean, and where I live, we've got a fire inside our house. We have to cook on fire. It's a mess. We have to drink water from a stream that my cows are in, and we also happen to go to the bathroom in it. And so it's like he runs through all these things that have happened in society that we take for granted, that are really revolutionary. So the whole point of trying to encourage people to think about this amazing transformation that people back then pretty much lived to about age 35, maybe 40. And today, the average person in the U.S. lives to 85, I think is the number now. So it's that sort of discussion, and we have on our website, the one I mentioned earlier, fuelingfreedomproject.com, we have a link to the moral case. And when you go there, you will see several sorts of articles and the publication I just mentioned on there with charts. And it's very enlightening.
All right. Well, I think everyone who's on the call that wanted to share their email got that to Kelly. We're going to send out a recording of this, Doug and Kelly, to all those students who couldn't be here tonight. Several from Colorado who are dealing with the Wild Earth Guardians problem in northwestern Colorado right now. They couldn't be on tonight because they're dealing with several different issues this evening. Well, Doug and Kelly, wanted to thank you guys for joining us tonight. We are excited that you guys were willing to join us. And these students from CSG are the top folks who are very interested in energy-related matters, the environment, dealing with overreaching regulations, and bringing government back into control. So look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so
Awesome.
much, Mark, and everyone. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys. One thing to let you guys know, if we'll be having the November speaker series next month. There will be several different speakers in November and December, so keep keep your emails open. I know the holidays are coming up, and we'll be sure to get this recording out to everyone over the next couple days. You'll be receiving an email so you can reach back to the Fueling Freedom Project. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for attending tonight. See you next time.